Welcome to Crypto Disrupted. This is Trent Lipinski, and I'm here with Alex Mashinsky, and we're here to talk about the blockchain and what Alex is working on. Can you give us an intro?
Hi, Trent. Thanks for having us. I've been a coin holder since 2013. Invested in a bunch of projects. I'm an advisor to about half a dozen projects, and kind of seeing a void in the market. I felt that most of the people currently who are in crypto are in it for the wrong reasons. They're either speculators or they're anarchists or they're libertarians, but they're not really, in my view, or most of them are not focused on kind of leading or helping decentralization take over the concentrated centralized platforms that we all take for granted every day.
Okay. And so what of the projects you're working on, what's your main focus right now?
So Celsius Network is, think of it as a container or a basket of services that are focused on doing what's in your best interest every day. So when I go and I do lectures, I ask people, who works for you every day? Who wakes up in the morning and is trying to do things for you every day? And people look at me like, what do you mean? I have to do that. And I'm like, no. Like your broker, your financial institution, and your insurance company, your financial advisor, all those people should be working for you. They should be helping you, but they're not. They're focused on profit maximization, and that profit maximization is conflicting with their need to work for you. So we think that we got to a stage where computer programs that include smart contracts and other capabilities can actually perform that function. They can perform what's in your best interest, because if you program them to do that, they don't have that same motive that humans do of just maximizing profit and trying to grab as many dollars out of the pockets of everybody you meet. So we're trying to create a basket of services where you as a consumer or the user of the Celsius network, you can trust all of them. So just like you buy membership in Costco and you know that you can buy all the products in Costco and you trust them to be priced properly, the same way Celsius is trying to create a basket of financial services that are all going to be in your best interest.
Interesting. So what, can you kind of go into why you've gotten into the blockchain and what's,
Sorry.
No worries.
I got into what?
Why you got into the blockchain? I met you at a blockchain conference, and I really appreciated your presentation, and you kind of went into a lot of your reasoning about why you got into the blockchain. Can you kind of go into that right now and kind of explain why you're so interested in this technology?
Yeah, so, I'm an immigrant. I've been very lucky to come to the United States and do very well. I did 7 venture-backed startups, raised over $1 billion, had $3 billion in exit. So, I don't really need to work for a living. I just, but I felt that after kind of taking from society for 50 years, it's time to give back. And I don't really believe in giving money to nonprofits, because I don't think they do a good enough job of actually deploying those dollars in an efficient way. So I decided to build something for the people, by the people. And I've been looking for something in the space for a very long time. I just couldn't find it, and then, after reading Satoshi's white paper a few years ago and understanding what he meant, I mean, he wrote, or she, whoever that is, right, wrote that paper right after the financial collapse. And the conclusion they came into, I mean, the product that Bitcoin represents, or the service, the platform, right, is a result of the collapse of our financial system. Now, the Fed came in and caught the falling knife and reflated us back into, where we are today. But most of the people in society don't understand what this cost us, right? I mean, we now have over 20 trillion of debt, and our children and grandchildren are going to have to pay all that debt. So Satoshi's conclusion was basically that it's not that we can fix the existing system, the existing financial system or the incentive system, but rather we need to create a whole alternative system where no man or government or central bank can dictate or decide for all of us if they're diluting the currency, or if they're printing more of it, or if they are changing the interest rates and so on. Because in most cases, these decisions are not made your best interest or my best interest. They're made to save the economy. And as we know, the people that benefit the most when these kind of reflationary actions are taking place are the 1%, right? So most of the benefits since 2008 has gone to the 1% around the world. And the people who caused the collapse in 2008 got rewarded the most since. So the system today really does not, cannot fix itself. And I see very little, looking at Washington and looking at how our government or central banks operate, I see very little chance that something is going to be done from the political standpoint. It's definitely not going to be initiated by the banks or the Wall Street firms that are making a killing. They have the highest profits in history, in the last few years. So Satoshi's idea was, let's create an alternate system in which there's going to be a limited supply of these coins. No one will be able to print or create more of them. And then we can have an economy that's based on that is going to operate for the people, by the people. And we're basically just extending that idea. And basically, we believe that, again, decentralization is going to take over. And we have 700 years of centralization. So if you think about every wave of innovation in which we were promised that this time it's going to be different, the internet came and we were promised that everything is going to be wonderful. Everybody's going to have access to all the information. Prices are going to be amazingly low. And instead, we got the most centralized companies ever created: Facebook, Google, and Alibaba, and Amazon, and so on. So the internet delivered freedom and access to information, but at the same time, it's also created the most enormous centralized toll collectors. So what we're trying to do is really, build on top of the decentralized platform and enable a service that is completely independent from any of these toll collectors. And if you look at my history, I mean, I was one of the first to create voice over IP. And back then in 94, 95, the cost of making a voice call was $2 to $3 a minute, right? From all over the world. And in each country, there was a monopoly that operated that service. And that monopoly charged you for every time you went in or you received an inbound call, they charged you a crazy amount of money. And we basically said, no, this is crazy. We're going to replace that with a decentralized platform that's going to run on the internet, and it's going to be free. Just like the call we're having right now, me and you, is free. Yeah. And that looked completely ridiculous. Most people thought I was like smoking something, because they were like, what are you talking about? How do you go from $3 a minute to free and unlimited? And I said, it's just inherent in the internet protocol. It's going to be part of that. And we wrote a protocol that enabled this type of transactions to happen on the internet. So just like you think of VoIP, now we're talking about MoIP, money over IP. And we're trying to enable exactly the same type of functionality using algorithms, protocols, and services that are run in the cloud, on the blockchain, through a distributed ledger, and provide what's in your best interest every day. So you don't have to work to get there. You don't have to take action every day. The system automatically optimizes on behalf of all of its members to really provide the best return for everybody, right? And the return is distributed according to how much each member contributed.
Interesting. So you're making the analogy that essentially we're moving into the next generation of the internet, which is now money over IP, instead of, where before it was voice over IP and video over IP. So now we're entering this new phase where, now we're entering a digital phase of money. And, the fact of the matter is money's actually been digital for a long time. This isn't entirely new. It's just new technology that now puts this in the people's hands instead of the bank's hands. Whereas before, you know, the banks have been moving money electronically for a while, but it's actually a fairly flawed system, even how they operate and how they're moving money, and compared to crypto and how the blockchain works. Can you kind of, considering all the experience and, you know, all the success that you've had, can you kind of put it in perspective for someone who doesn't really understand or doesn't really know how the market works today? Like how does the banking system, you know, what are the flaws? What are the things there that, you know, you see as the main issue?
So you bring a lot of good points. So let's go through it. So the first phase of money was really barter, right? So you go back a few thousand years, and people had to exchange, a goat for eggs, or milk for cheese, or whatever it was, right? So it was one-to-one barter system. And then we created coins that carried its own value. So if you remember the old gold coins, the weight of the gold coins mattered much more than what was imprinted on the coin, right? So because the weight of the coin represented how much gold it had, and the value was built into the gold coin. Then we basically came up with the idea that we can deposit all the coins in some safe place, like a bank, and the bank gave us a note. The first notes that were issued in Banco di Pace in Italy. And what the bank did is basically the bank manager wrote on a piece of paper, you have 5 gold coins, and he gave it to you. And when you came back, you just gave him the note and he gave you the coins back. So we went through the note process where for hundreds of years, central banks started issuing these notes and started printing many of them. And in 1972, I think it was, that we took off the gold standard. Taking us off the gold standard meant that from that moment on, the US government, for example, did not have a gold coin or a gold ounce for every $100 or whatever they issued. They stopped collecting the gold against all of that, which allowed them to print 10, 100, 1,000 times more money than what they actually had in reserves, right? And from that moment on, our inflation and all of this craziness that we're living through right now on the financial system has started in that moment, the minute we went off the gold standard. So then, like you said, we moved to a digital money. So digital money just means that banks can interact with each other through proprietary computer networks. They don't talk over the internet. Most of those transactions are done on SWIFT or IBAN or other networks that are proprietary networks where all the banks are members and they exchange transactions with each other. And since all the parties, they know who the other party is, it's basically a very closed-knit system in which they can interact with each other. And the last phase, the phase we're going through right now, of this decentralized, blockchain-based, open ledger, we're saying the ledger is no longer sitting inside a bank behind a vault, secured by, giant IT departments, but rather everybody has a copy of the ledger, and we all agree who has how many coins, right, or how many tokens. And by having all of us agree, we come to a consensus, and we print a block every 10 minutes or every 2 minutes, depending on the speed of the blockchain, in which we record an immutable list that tells us who owns what at any time. So, and what that does, it's for the first time allows us to transfer value among all of us, peer-to-peer effectively, bypassing that proprietary network that the banks have built, and for which they are acting as a toll collector. So banks are, considered some of the most powerful companies on the planet. And I always ask people, well, who made banks so powerful? And they say, oh, the central bank or the regulator. And I'm like, no, it's you and me. We are making the deposits, and the banks who receive these deposits, all their power comes from our deposits. If we stop depositing money with the banks, and we, for example, put that money into Ethereum, or put that money into Bitcoin, or put that money into a gold coin, anything but the bank, they will lose all their power, because they actually don't have a lot of their own assets. Everything they have is stuff that me and you are giving them. Then they pay us nothing. They pay us 1% per year for depositing our money with them. and then they turn around and give it to our neighbor or father or uncle or anybody else through a credit card or through other mechanism and charge them 25%. So their profit is just obscene, right? I mean, the fact that we allow them to pay us 1% and allow them to charge us immediately 25% should be illegal. That's how obscene it is. But banks are some of the biggest lobbyists in Washington. And because of that, they continue to pass more and more laws that effectively prevent anyone else from competing with them. It prevents new banks from being formed. It prevents me and you getting into the same business, the lending business, and it prevents us from issuing credit card with lower rates. So what we're trying to do is really find a solution that allows us to receive funds from people from all over the world. The blockchain is a fungible platform. So for example, if you want to give us Ether, you can give us Ether from any country on the planet. There's nothing that prevents you from giving us. Obviously, we block North Korea and Iran and places like that. But if you're from England, or if you're from Vietnam, or if you're from South Africa, you can participate by depositing coins with Celsius, and we in turn lend against those coins. So we issue loans at 9%, and we pay our depositors 5%. So it's a very simple process in which the people who apply for a loan pay half of the rate or less, and the people who issue the loan, effectively the membership that issues the loan, gets 5 times the interest rate that they get in a bank. So it's a win-win for society. It's win-win for everybody who participates in our platform, and it's taking away the power from the banks and from exchanges. Exchanges today, crypto exchanges, behave in a very similar way to banks, right? They give you nothing, but they make huge amounts of money. Binance just announced that they made over $1 billion in less than their first year of operation. You know, so it just shows you, most people think they put their coins in Binance and they're doing very well. Well, obviously Binance is doing much better than they do, you know. So we think there's a great opportunity here to extract all the value, all this value on behalf of the membership, instead of just giving it to yet another centralized company called Binance or CoinDesk or Coin something else.
Yeah. Can you go into the investment side as well? So we've kind of covered, you know, how money works, how the system works, but can you talk about how, you know, there's literally laws in place that prevent you from investing in startups in the United States? You know, you have to be an accredited investor. You know, you basically have a system where, you know, if you don't make a certain amount of money in the United States, you can't participate in investing in startups. Can you talk about how the blockchain is changing the investment space?
Yeah, it's a very good point. So the U.S. regulators, for a variety of reasons, mostly because of scams and because of bad behavior by many players, have created very strict rules that relate to how unaccredited investors, so these are investors that have less than $1 million in liquid assets or earn less than $250,000 a year, can participate in any type of security, right? Purchasing a security. So, and the restrictions, I mean, if you speak to the regulators, I'm sure they'll give you 100 good reasons why they've done all of that. But the bottom line is that all these restrictions prevent the average Joe to have any chance of participating in the best deals out there, right? So only the rich or the very rich can get into the very best deals. And because of that, obviously, the people who are poor or people who are trying to enter the middle class or go from the middle class to be part of the 1% don't have a chance to participate. So what Ethereum really created, and it wasn't by design, it was more like a mistake. Ethereum was really celebrated for inventing the smart contract. By really what they invented was the ICO, the initial coin offering, right? So they did one for themselves. And when everybody saw how well Ethereum did after they did their own ICO, everybody wanted to do the same thing. And effectively, what that is a crowdsourcing platform which generates either coins or tokens. So those are, in many cases, are not considered securities. And because of that, in many countries, they are, um, the average Joe is allowed to participate in that. So in the United States, a little bit more complicated. The regulators have come hard on a lot of these ICOs and saying, oh, you're a wolf in a sheep clothing. You're really a security. You're just pretending to be a utility token. Or you're a coin that is not a pure utility. You're really a security, right? And for those, the regulators are requiring you to file a Reg D or some other filing indicating what you're offering to the public and only allowing accredited investors to participate. So there are a few exceptions. You can do Reg CF, so that's crowdfunding, which is limited to $1 million, and you can participate in that. So that is the only exception I know. Or you can basically buy into either public companies or specific funds in which those companies invest in projects like these. So you have some exposure, even though you may not be an accredited investor. So, but yes, the short answer is that in most countries in the Western world, it is hard to invest in venture-backed companies if you're not, if you don't have very high income. And the ICO world represents a whole other way of going at it and participate in this appreciation and creating an opportunity for you to have great returns.
And you're advising on, you said over a dozen different projects right now, right?
Half a dozen.
Half a dozen. Okay. So what's so what are those projects like? What's gotten your interest? What are you investing in right now?
So I invested in projects that I believe are helping decentralization. They're helping promote the crypto community. They're helping bring the next 100 million people into crypto. So today we talked about at the beginning of the interview that there's about 50 million active users. Most of them are speculators. They're like tourists, right? They come and they hang out for a few days. If they make money, they might stay a little bit longer, but if they lose money by buying and selling coins, they leave. And because of that, you have this huge volatility in the coin prices because most of the people who are in this are not here for the long run. They're not believers in decentralization. They're not believers in this or that project. So the projects I invested in, like for example, Syrian Lab builds a custom phone, Android phone that has a very unique both storage capabilities as well as biometrics. So it's a much safer wallet than most other solutions. And we think that is the kind of product that the community needs to really solve a lot of the hacking and security problems that we're having. Another project is micro money. So it's a micro lending platform that provides lending to customers in Asia. And Invox, another project that provides small business lending through the blockchain. So it enables people to, besides staking their crypto, also stake their invoices or other type of collateral and be able to get loans against them. So it helps bring small businesses into the crypto community. And today there's more small businesses around the world than crypto holders. So if you can bring a bunch of them, you can double or triple the total crypto holders out there.
That's actually an incredible opportunity, because if you're a small business, it's getting a loan from a bank these days is impossible. I ran a startup for about 5 years, and it was I tried to get a small business loan once, and it was a tricky situation. I mean, it's the business was doing well. We were producing about anywhere between $30,000-$40,000 a month in revenue regularly for years. And even then we were having issues getting loans.
Yes.
So even when you're generating revenue, I eventually bootstrapped that startup to $1 million and then sold it. Even going through that experience, it was difficult to get loans even in that situation. So if you're in a situation where you're literally bringing in, what some people make in a year, in a month, you still can't get a small business loan in in the United States of America. So, the fact that you're working on solutions and you've invested in solutions that are going to enable small businesses to be able to interact with crypto, that has huge implications for the small business world, like, not just in the United States, but also globally.
Yeah, and then look, a bank's job is to maximize its profits. So when they look at you, they see high risk and low profit capabilities for themselves, right? You don't represent a billion-dollar business for them, so they're not really that excited about lending to you, right? So we're focused on not profit optimization, but rather community growth, right? We're focused on how do we maximize the size of our community, because for us, the size of the community determines the value of our platform, right? So for us, our mission is to lend to as many people as possible, and all of our loans are asset-backed, so they're actually safer loans than traditional loans. And that's why we're only charging 9%, right? So it's not like we're crazy and we're charging half the rate. We believe that everybody should have access to low interest borrowing, and we're doing that through an asset-backed lending. And the assets could be crypto, they could be invoices, it could be a variety of services. So again, we're putting together a basket that can allow you to see which bucket you belong in, and then use that to really get access to the service, become part of the community, and hopefully when you make money, enable us to lend to others. I mean, the whole point is for the community to help its members, just like community banks used to do before JP Morgan and Citi and all those guys bought all of them. So and all of our profits go back as payouts to the community, right? So, and that's what's going to motivate a lot of other people to come and join, because when they see that you can have 5 or 6% return on your money, on top of the appreciation of the Ether or the Bitcoin, they will definitely see that as a much better solution. They're giving your money to a bank that pays you nothing or pays you 1% if you beg. So I think, there are better solutions out there. It's just that no one has put the whole system together and made it really easy for people to join and be part of it.
Yeah. And what are the biggest challenges that you see crypto and the blockchain facing right now?
So a lot of people are talking about speed and adoption and so on. I'm less concerned about speed. Like for a service like ours, where there's a monthly payment, we don't represent a lot of friction or a lot of load on the Ethereum network or the Bitcoin network. So I'm less concerned or anxious about how fast is the blockchain, right? I'm more concerned about the membership and the fact that we are not adding membership with the right characteristics. So again, we have way too many speculators, and because of that, we're not really building the right product. We're building a lot of products that speculators want to see versus product that the community needs to see to go away from a centralized world and into a decentralized world.
And what do you think it's going to take for that shift to happen? Is it user interface? Is it ease of use? Is it a Super Bowl ad? What is it going to take to get, the average person to accept interacting with tokens and coins? Right.
So I think there's a lot of things that need to be solved. The user interface obviously is very important. The fact that you have to deal with hash codes and addresses and things like that is just completely unusable. And look, email used to be like that, right? You had to type the IP address before people really invented email systems. So I think we need to solve the user interface. We need to solve the trust issue. There's still a lot of trust. A lot of people who are not part of the community because they don't trust the platform. They think it's all hackers and anarchists. So that's why I spend more than half of my time speaking and trying to convince people that this is for real and they really need to get involved. Doesn't mean they have to put 100% of their money into it. It just means that they should buy a few coins and get involved and understand what this is all about. And another problem that is a huge problem, I think, is the fact that we just finished our ICO. We raised 50 million and we had over 15,000 people register. 95% of them were men. And you cannot build a platform like this by excluding half of the population on the planet. Yeah. So we definitely need to do a much better job at building products that women want to use as well, building a user interface that women want to use, and creating, again, trust level that women feel comfortable with, because they just don't feel comfortable with it at all. And one of the things we've done at Celsius, more than half of our employees are women. So from day one, we focused on that and made sure that we have an input. Like everything we try to do, we run over and say, like our CFO is a woman and our EVP of sales is a woman and so on. And we go and we ask them every day, like, what do you think about this idea? And they just nod their head, like, what are you thinking? So we know that, we build a great brand and we're building great trust with our society. And a lot of it has to do because it had a woman's touch, So I think these are some examples of the things that need to be addressed. And again, we can't solve all of them at once. We have to gradually, move people over from like this early adoption phase and into mass adoption, cross the chasm of early adoption,
And what is the timeline like? What's the timeline look like for you? Because, I've heard, blockchain being compared to like, oh, this is the dial-up phase. Oh, we're in the MySpace era. What does this look like to you? What does the future hold?
Well, I wrote a blog about a year ago calling it the Cambrian explosion. And I believe that we are in the Cambrian explosion phase where everything is being tested. So basically, people are throwing money at anything. Like now, it's like the spray and pray phase of the crypto revolution, right? So any project, any 20-year-old with a few pages of a white paper can get funded. They used to be able to get 50 or 100 million. Now they get 500,000 or 1 million. But at least they get a chance to showcase their idea, convince the community that they have something good, put a team together, and maybe build a prototype. And the community really needs to focus on what is it trying to do. Is it trying to create an alternative for example, Visa or MasterCard? Is it trying to replace the US dollar? Or is it trying to, for example, create decentralized organizations that are doing everything in the best interest of their community, right? So I think, and you see companies trying to do a lot of these things, right? The different things I talked about. We are not a believer, like I believe that the killer apps, the Netscape moment in our industry is going to be, it's going to have financial characteristic to it, and it's going to enable decentralization. That's what's going to drive people to adopt it. And it's going to have organic adoption, meaning people are going to not just jump in and be part of it, but also recruit others and become activists to really create that massive adoption of users from all over the world for these new services. So we believe we're working on what we think is the killer app. Borrowing and lending is a killer app. And like you said, it's imagine if it's hard in the United States to get a loan. Imagine how hard it is in Africa or in Asia or in other places, South America, where there is no credit score, there is no credit history, and most people have obviously much less in assets than they do for the average American.
Mm-hmm. So where, so you kind of, so like what's the timeline for this? Are we looking at 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Like, cause you went through, you saw that evolution with VOP, and, how long did it take you from kind of the inception and the core concepts of those ideas to actually implement it? Because I kind of want the audience to understand that, having the idea and then actually getting it to a point where there's mass adoption, that can be a long process.
Sure, and VoIP is almost 25 years old, and it was still having problems. I mean, still many times you're on WhatsApp or Skype, and it just breaks up or doesn't connect and so on. So it's not like there's a date where all the problems are solved, right? It's getting better and better, but it's still work in progress. So I think, the crypto world is Bitcoin is almost 10 years old, and we haven't solved a lot. I mean, the adoption, the internet at 10 years old had 10 times as many members as crypto at 10 years old, right? So it's actually having very slow adoption. We had a little bit of a hockey stick recently with kind of a lot of people getting into it for the wrong reasons, but from an actual use case, like what can you do with it every day, we're still working on figuring out what are those killer apps. So I think now that you have tens of billions of dollars that have been thrown into this community from outside investors, I think that will definitely accelerate both the creation of the companies and also figuring out what works and what doesn't work. So I would say in the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to see several companies emerge that kind of going to dominate. They're going to come up with a killer app, and they're going to dominate the user adoption side of it. And the crypto community really measures success based on the size of the community. When the community is growing, the coin grows in value. When the community is shrinking, the coin shrinks in value. So this is really a fight over who's going to build the largest community and be able to create that currency or the token that everybody's using to exchange medium with each other. So I think we're still, again, it's still early, but I think the next 2 to 3 years are going to kind of separate the wheat from the shaft and show us the way, right? Just like the Netscape browser, I think it was very confusing before that, what the internet is going to look like. But the minute the browser came out, everybody figured out that they have to follow that path because everything else looked much, much worse than building it on the browser. So we think that, again, the wallet represents that. The wallet is the Netscape moment, but what you put in the wallet and how it operates and all that stuff has not been solved yet, right? It's not really has been made available. We haven't solved the UI UX issue. We haven't solved the trust issue. We haven't solved the why would you switch from the physical world or from the banking world into this type of wallet. So Celsius is trying to address a lot of these issues, but we also partner with a lot of other companies. Like I said, like we partner with Invox, we partner with Micromoney, and Serene. All these companies I also invested in to really enable you to get a much more complete user experience. And we're inviting other companies that think along the same line as we do to kind of come and work together to create a Kuretsu, because all of us working together, we have a chance against the big banks and the financial institution. If we fight amongst each other, we're probably not going to have a chance to win because it's a big fight. I mean, what's at stake is all the money in the world. So this is not a little fight, and it makes VoIP, me fighting against the phone companies back 20, 25 years ago, look like a child's play, you know? So I've been preparing for this for a long time.
Yeah.
But I have my gloves on and I'm ready to go 15 rounds. So.
Well, I'm glad you're here to lead the fight.
Ring the bell. Ring the bell.
So how can people get involved? How can people join your community? How can people get involved in crypto? What do you recommend?
Well, so people that are already in crypto, I think every one of your people watching your video should go and recruit a few people every day. Like everybody I meet, the first thing I said, do you have a wallet? And if they say no, I'm like, download a wallet, buy a coin. I don't care which coin, but just buy something. $10, just become part of the community, right? So bringing in our friends, our family, making them feel comfortable, making them feel part of the community is very important. And then again, we need to be more selective and more direct about the projects we support, because if these projects do not help, if they help centralized exchanges make more profit, that's not necessarily in the best interest of the community, right? So I think we need to think more holistically about why are we doing all of this? What are we trying to solve here? And who are these projects that represent the best interest of the community, that are doing it for the right reasons? And if those reasons are making money, then you know that that's the wrong project, right? So the reason have to be the growth and the health of the community. So again, I want your viewers to think about Costco or Amazon or services like that, and why do they exist and how do they provide value to their members, right? That's what we're trying to model ourselves after, and these are the kind of partners that we're looking for.
Awesome. And how can people find you?
We go to our website, celsius.network, or join our Telegram channel. And it's very active. There's a lot of people with a lot of ideas, and we'd love to hear from you and become part of our community.
Cool. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I think, it's a daily grind. There's no, this is 7 days a week. If you're new to crypto, it's both exciting and exhausting at the same time. So definitely, but I go home exhausted, but I know that I put everything into it, and I can't wait to wake up in the morning because there's so much to do. So it's really, I did 7 startups before this, and this is the one I'm excited about the most because it's really, you can really change the world, right? If you do the right stuff, you have an opportunity to change the world. So we're looking for the next 100 million people to come and help us do that.
Well, thank you for taking this on and putting on the gloves for us.
Thanks for having us.
Take care.